everybody, I'm Steven Saylor and welcome to my gallery, Evergreen studio. The gallery I started in 1974, actually, the studio. Then this building we added to the baggage car, which is my studio. It was a Union Pacific Railroad car, and it ran on the Carson, Colorado Railroad line. And in 1938, when they closed the railroad line down, they brought the car up here, and it was on the plot plan, it was a bunkhouse. And then in the 1950s, it caught fire and burned the roof and most of this side off of it. And in 1978, when my daughter was born, I moved from the house where I had my studio up to the train car and redid it, and that's where I do all my painting. And we'll go in there and have a look around in a bit, but it was the Union Pacific baggage car. And then I've always liked painting people. When I went to Kent State University, I have a BFA and an MA from Kent State University. I was considering myself a realist because that's what I did. And I had a lot of problems with my painting instructor because if I was painting a bowl of fruit, it would look like a bowl of fruit. And he would say, you know, you're never going to get anywhere doing that. It should be abstract or whatever. And I said, that's not what I want to do. So we battled, and I got D's and F's in painting class. But when I moved to Nevada in '72, I had been an art director in New York City for a big agency doing television commercials. I was a television director. And at that time, I'd prior lived on a little lake at Kent State University. It had a little cabin on the lake with a dock and a rowboat, and the environment I was used to in New York City at that time. In the early '70s, Times Square was all prostitution and bankrupt. The city was broke, and there was just sirens all night long and all kinds of trouble. And so I asked the agency, which was mainly out of Akron, Ohio, which is near Kent State where I went to school. I said, I can't stay in New York, you know, it's not the way I want to live. And they said, well, you have to. And I said, well, no, I have to give you a 2-week notice because this isn't my idea of living. So anyhow, long and the short of it was that I'd met an art director from San Francisco, and he offered me a job. So I packed up the car and headed out this way. And my older brother was an electrical engineer working on the new MGM Grand Hotel. So I stopped to visit with him and spent a few days, and I'm reading the paper, and one of the big ad agencies was looking for an art director. It was May Advertising. We had offices in Reno and Vegas, so they hired me up as the art director. And then I went up to UNR, since I had a master's degree and I liked teaching, which I did my senior and graduate year at Kent State. Applied for a teaching job. And over a period of about a year, developed a good clientele with the different casinos and car companies and stuff in Reno. And I had an opportunity to come and visit a friend of mine who'd moved to Dayton. And so I moved down here a week later. We were walking up the road here, and there was this pretty blonde gal out front raking the yard. And got introduced to her, and told her I was looking to come live in Dayton. She said, well, you can come move in here with me for now until you find a place. So I did, and it turned out we were great friends, and after a year we got married. Her name was Halaki, she was from Finland, and after about another year we realized we were better friends than we were a married couple, so we just parted ways, and she moved on and I stayed here and rehabbed the old house, which is the oldest house in Nevada. It was built in 1854, had no running water, no toilet, had a WPA outhouse, and a big pond behind the house that was fed by a ditch the Chinese had dug, 7-mile long ditch, and that was the town's water supply. So in the summer I could just bathe in the pond, and in the winter I would go down to the old corner bar, and for $1 you could get a shower and a beer. So I did that for 4 years, and then in 1976 Lyon County decided that the Chinese ditch and the pond was adequate for the residents of Dayton, so they brought a leaky old tank from Fernley, gave Fernley a new tank, and so I said, well, hook me up. So I got running water and built a bathroom and all that stuff. So long and short of it was, we moved into the 21st century. So my passion has always been painting people. So that's predominantly what I do, is paint people, and I like to meet the people that I'm going to paint. So I painted a lot of local peoples. Then I got a commission. My first big commission was from UNR Wolfpack, and I did a painting for them, and it was called One Night at the Little Waldorf, and which is right here. So that was my first commission work. They sold that out in one evening and raised $85,000 for the athletic scholarship program. And then Rotary Foundation got word of it, and so then they commissioned me to do a painting which has become quite popular. It's called Heavyweights, and it features 7 living governors, and then they're loading a gold shipment on a V&T railroad car, and that sold really well. So then they commissioned a follow-up painting, which was Celebrity Train, and that painting took 2 years to complete because I had to go and meet all these different people, and they were in Branson, Missouri, or Nashville, or Texas, or wherever they lived, and photograph them, have them sign a release, have them approve the picture I was going to paint of them. And then that one, which is over here, that one sold out, and now the prints sell for $10,000, and they were hand-signed by each of the celebrities, which was a process that took another 6 months, because I had to take these crates of prints and go meet them wherever they were, and they'd sit down and sign them. And then after that, then they commissioned another one called The Victory Train, and then I've had multiple other commissions. I did the signature art piece for the new Carson Tahoe Hospital in Carson City, and right now I'm working on a commission from Marshall McBride at the Bucket of Blood, and it's the characters from Bonanza at the Bucket of Blood back in 1860. So I'm working on that, and then we're going to coordinate with Virginia City Tourism Commission to start having an annual Bonanza Days. Because people come to Virginia City and they're asking, where's the Cartwrights, where's the Bonanza? And of course there isn't anything there, but since it's a big part of our history, we should celebrate it. So we're going to create Bonanza Days, and we'll unveil the painting and the prints. They're going to make 250 of them, and we'll unveil that in May, hopefully. And so I'm working on that now, and hopefully have it done in March, by April. So it's quite a process, but there were 440 episodes of Bonanza on YouTube. And since I'd seen some Bonanza when I was a younger kid, I thought, well, I should get to, figure out who the Cartwrights were and how they developed and evolved. So I watched all 440 episodes of Bonanza. Some I fast forwarded through, but I got a good feel for pause and Little Joe and, you know, Adam and the rest of them. And so that's coming together quite well. The main problem with that thing is if you go to the Bucket of Blood, which is beautiful, it's just chock-a-block full of everything. I mean, pickle jars, there's supposed to be hundreds of them. They were these beautiful little glass containers, and Marshall's got a collection that goes on forever, and there's stuff everywhere on the walls. And he had a photograph of what the bar looked like in the early 1930s, and there was like one mirror on the wall and a little back bar with a few bottles on it, and that was it. So I had to go back multiple times to photograph the bar and then figure out how I could eliminate all the stuff that would not have been there. So I've spent more time doing that than I'm spending time on the characters. But the fortunate thing about painting people is I've painted a lot of celebrities, politicians, local people. You really get to know the person, and then you can bring that out in the painting if you know them, rather than if you don't. I've only ever painted a few people who were passed away, and it just doesn't have the feeling if you haven't met them. You know, you can kind of pick up on their character. So anyhow, my original process for painting was I started in oil. I had an aversion to turpentine, so I moved to acrylic, which was a new product back in the late 60s, and of course it's plastic paint. It was better than oil, but I didn't care for it. And then I took watercolor classes at Kent State, but watercolor was totally unforgiving. I mean, if you mess up, you can't wipe off or cover it up. So in the mid-1970s, there was an exhibit of this artist Maxfield Parrish's work in San Francisco, and I always admired his paintings. So I went down and looked at them and discovered that what he had done, which is what Leonardo da Vinci had done, was like the Mona Lisa, was a layering process where you put a pure color and a varnish, and a pure color and a varnish, one over the other. So you get a layering effect of color on color, which if you put blue over red, you get purple. So I thought, well, I'll try that with watercolor. So my first watercolor painting was of a dream I had called The Welcome Stranger, which is here on the wall. And I kept telling people about this dream I had, and they said, well, you gotta paint it, you gotta paint it. So that was my first glazed watercolor, and I was getting the basic, you work from light to dark, traditionally in watercolor, so I was doing that. So I got the original drawing on and first coats on, and I put a workable spray fixative on there instead of a varnish. And then I got ready to paint it. I got my brush out in the water and put it on there, and it just all turned into little balls, like water on glass. So I was heartbroken. I'm going, Jesus, this isn't gonna work. So I was home washing dishes, and I'm using the little Dawn dish soap. And I'm washing the glasses and realized that the water would just sheet out on the glass. So I came up to the studio here and put a drop Dawn dish soap in some water, added the color to it, and developed a glazing technique for watercolor. So with that in mind, you can take and build layer on layer on layer, and if you don't like it, you can just take and wipe it right off and come back again and go over it. So the process of glazing watercolor is something I developed over time, but I still use that technique for all my paintings. And it works really well. And then, being a realist, I just kept working more and more towards realism, you know, really trying to catch the person and get it more realistic. And so now people consider me to be a hyper-realist, photorealist, which is what I was trying to achieve. So that's kind of where I've developed now. So now I can capture an image and it looks real. You know, you can really feel the person. And with the glazing technique, in that depth, you get an optical mixing of color, where the light transfers through all those layers and bounces back at you, rather than a reflected light, which is just bouncing off the surface like in an oil painting. So, anyhow, so most of my drawings, I work up a lot of sketches ahead of time. I've been working on some books that my wife Johnny's writing. The first one we did was called Christmas and Carol, and the books are written from the perspective of the animals. And so the first one we did, Christmas and Carol, that's in its 4th publishing. We do self-publish, which I highly recommend. And her story she has lined up for me is one on a cat named Donovan, which was a rescue cat who lived on the street. And the second story is about Casper, our little burro, who's 34, and he's telling the story about names and how people get their names and how animals get their names and what it means and what's your name. So